So you might wonder why we titled this class as we did. The excerpts, orchestral excerpts that everyone should know. I think for several reasons. First and foremost is because if a person's seeking a performance job, they are your be-all and end-all. You will always need these pieces, whether you're auditioning for an orchestral situation or a concert band or an Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine, Coast Guard type of career in one of the service bands, which is really quite a wonderful place to be as an alternative to doing teaching necessarily if one isn't inclined to teach. And these excerpts are used by the service bands now as well as by orchestras. They're grouped into 4 categories, although there certainly are more. They're listed sort of in the order. Well, music making is first, and we're going to do that. We're going to go in the order that you have them. And music making certainly is the ultimate criterion. We use, though, the technique, the technical achievement of the person at the end, in the last category, as the first criterion. When you're in a cattle call of people who come, and there are 120 or 150 clarinet players who show up for one position. We have to be able to be fair, of course. We give all of you a certain amount of time. We never cut anybody off, and we realize that all of you have come from a distance, usually. You paid sometimes a considerable amount of money to play these auditions. And we want it to be a worthwhile experience for you, too. So we always give you 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever seems to be correct for that particular audition, and in which time you get to go through these. And you will find out what goes really easily for you and what goes less easily for you. The technical things at the end are the ones that we use to basically to eliminate the people that we don't think are quite ready yet for that particular job. And the first one we're going to do, which is our last criterion, the music making, is really our ultimate tool in deciding who we want to listen to for the next 20 or 30 years. Dr. Hardig has made a distinction earlier today between technician and musician, and that certainly is where we are with auditions as well. That the technique is the first criterion, but then after the technicians are all discovered, then we choose the musician from that group. And in between, we have rhythm, which is so important that we will eliminate people instantly if rhythm isn't really just rock solid and counting perfect. Because that is remedial, and we feel if a person doesn't have that instinctively, it's not worth trying to see if it's going to work out. And so we're going to start with the category of music making, just because it's easy to get started, and we have some willing victims here. Hopefully people who will enjoy doing this. Amy, you're playing first, yes? This is Beethoven 6. It could have been that we chose, we could have chosen Beethoven 6, Beethoven 4, Beethoven 8. Any of these are really good clarinet pieces. And they all have particular demands. 6 is just, shows 2 or 3 things that are really important. Okay, so this, if you had to guess, what does this really assess? It's not only music, but what does it also show? Tonguing, articulation, certainly some technique, but articulation, primary, because that's why this is hard for most of us. The articulation is over a range, so that if a person isn't doing things fundamentally correct inside, the articulation doesn't sound smooth and even and clear. So, and in your case, it sounds fine. Now, so then we would just work with trying to make that even better. The second note could be stopped. If you have which doesn't have much life to it. So beep, bum, bum, like that. Try that again. Right, and you just go. You would stop it with your tongue, just like in the good Bonad tradition of bum, like that. That's right, that's right. Where you would stop the staccato with your tongue, and then you are ready to release it for the third. And go ahead, start it. Okay, this is good. Now let's do some step progression here. B, C, D. So if you could put a little expression in that instead of just plain. Try it in front of the beat. Good. And then on the arpeggios, do you imagine that they're all the same as far as dynamics or style or anything like that? Some of them are obviously louder, yes? Yeah, there are some bars marked forte. And those bars are because the orchestra, right at the same time as you're playing bum, 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 like that. And it's really vigorous, but it can cover the clarinet a little bit. So that's why Beethoven wrote it up to forte. And that, it means forte, because Beethoven never wrote a mezzo forte in his life. You'll never ever see an MF in anything Beethoven ever wrote. So forte means forte. So let's try this. And start on the and then go through the challenges, but the triplets are really nice. Because one thing Amy's doing is in the dominant seventh one, da 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 dee da da da, it's a little more melodic and a little bit broader and nicer. The other one is more sort of nuts and bolts, and you could. So you show da 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 da, so that there's a little bit of progression that way. It makes it a little more interesting. And then the dominant sevenths that Amy did really nicely. And then what you want to do near the end is really reach a peak on the very last tonic, and you could probably sell that better. Why don't you try just before that? Maybe. Here we go. If you start right there on this one right here. So when you get here, you are strongest, really strongest. Good. Yeah, she did that in order to be able to create a good solid forte from which she could terrace diminuendo in 5 stages all the way to the end. And making certain that the last G wouldn't be reluctant to speak in any way. It was just a little bit, you placed it a little bit, it would be better, and just right off the line. So now let's do the solo in the second movement at F. Okay, yeah, D. There it is. Right at letter D. Yeah, do the bar below. Yeah, usually. So the whole idea in this is, well, this is a pastoral symphony about out of doors, about beautiful nature. And the beginning of this is, which is water just flowing like this. And so, So put a little more expression on that. Let's just try it. Right on that. So it's a very quick bloom. You did it better your own way. Actually, do the second one your way. Good. Okay. And then, when you get to there, and be sure that you're in full voice right on the C. And then you don't boom that note. You kind of swell it. Start right there on the G. Good, yes. And then you would carry on because you're really like in full voice there. This is the top and the most beautiful part of the solo. Start right there. Okay, then she gets into the articulation. This is the one he sits down for articulation, though there could be others, unlike Firebird, which is likely the rhythmic assessment. It could be Mendelssohn Symphony No. 3, the Scottish Symphony. It could be easily that. It could be Sibelius, First Symphony, Third Movement, which has a lot of good articulation in it. But somehow this seems to be one that shows us everything we need to know as far as the articulation, the counting, and the dynamics, and a couple of things. So let's see how this goes. Reasonably, 92 should do it. It should be fast enough, unless the committee asks you to do it slower or faster. And they might ask, if a person has a really wicked tongue, and if they just fly through this and they play way faster than normal, often we'll ask them actually to slow it down and play it at a more typical tempo, because sometimes those people might be inclined to do some kind of funny tonguing. Not necessarily double tonguing, but something that's sort of like a spasm tongue, that kind of thing. And sometimes those people won't be able to do it so well at a reduced tempo. So in a case like this, it's really right where it should be, around 92. That's ambitious. So let's try it with the metronome on this time, and see if you can keep a very nice stable tempo. In fact, 92. Let's put it on 88, because that was where you were for part of it. Okay, good. It's right together. Now notice the accent. Those two beats, you really want to show those, because, well, that's what gives it the life, you know. These little sparks that come out like that. Just try to get the beginning. Good diminuendo. On the last trills, they could be choir. It's marked specifically piano, yes? Yep. Just try the last from the beginning, just by yourself. Notice, when she does the choir, it's inclined to be slower. we play quietly, we get slower. When we play faster, sometimes we go on. And we have to always resist that so that when we get quieter, we train ourselves to not get slower as we do it. The diminuendo is pretty good. Let's see if it's change parts. Are you really not ready to do that? You don't have to do this. Okay, then it's not fair for you. Let's start from the beginning and see if both of you can get the accents. Now for you, down on the bottom, the accents on the D's have to be probably twice what the accents on the B's are. Because when two clarinets play in unison here, doubling something, the second clarinetist plays less than the first. Because the first person is playing lead, and they should be the one that's carrying it. Now, if they're in thirds, like much of this piece is, the second player has to be strong as the first, which means since they're lower, they probably have to play a little louder than the first player plays in order for it to sound like it's equal. Now, in a case like those accents, the first clarinet has a B, long B, and then the lower clarinet has a D way down 2 fingers below the staff. And that's a big difference in timbre and in range. And the lower voice has to be way stronger in order for it to sound as loud as the first. So when you get here, in fact, let's start right here. That's bar 5. Just start on bar 5. Good. Okay, it's better, but it slows you down. You have to do it. Let's try again. Good. Now, you would, I think, agree that, although it happens very quickly, that it's better matched. We hear more second, and that's really good. Let's see how well you could do that in the innuendo that goes up to that. You know what it is. In fact, let's go. We can start right here. We have 2 groups of and just a little quicker so that it right on time on the next C. Same thing. Yeah. You see, some of us want to get a head start. If you know that we're going to be late at the end, start early. Well, there's so much for ensemble there. Let's try it. Yeah. You really kept it going on the way up. That's good. Now, the Bonan book, which many of us grew up with, and myself included, has a bunch of missing bars in it. It's just kind of chopped up, and they give you all of what they consider the important things. But these intervening bars of counting are not there. And if you practiced only that, and you go into an audition, and you see these bars, you're not ready to count out rests and play bars that you've never imagined were there. And so here's another instance of trying to work from good parts. There are collected parts. Dover, maybe it's Dover, publishes groups of all the Tchaikovsky symphonies, all Brahms, Beethoven, and they're good. They're good parts, and you have all of them then to work with. And it's fun when you listen to a favorite recording of an orchestra that you really love, and a clarinetist you would die for, to listen to all the stuff that you don't normally hear. Sometimes when I would be listening to the Cleveland Orchestra, I would hear every note the clarinetist would play, whether it was tooty, low, quiet, because you're so tuned into the timbre of the instrument, and it's really fun to be able to hear everything that's there. So, can you think of anything that you would wonder about or would like to mention? Is that hard? Why is it hard?
Well, it's really difficult just sitting in the corner, have one and set for
Then just to come like that. And that's like what it is. You get to sit in a practice room and maybe for a half hour and warm up, and then this nice person comes and marches you out to the scaffold, out to here, and you have to sit here, and it's dead silent, and it's just you and your thoughts. And if your thoughts are against you, there's no hope. And so that's why practicing mock auditions for your friends and running through stuff before you go to an audition is so helpful. Because if you can get people to listen to you, you walk on, you don't say anything, you just play, and you find out what holds together and what doesn't hold together, and then you know what to fix, and you know what's going to come apart. And then you save yourself having to figure that out or learn that in the real audition. However, I would always encourage you to go take auditions if they will let you play. Because the only way we get better is to have multiple auditions that we may not do as well at and then gradually get better on until finally we begin to be able to ace them. And in order to ace an audition and get considered or even advance to the second round, you have to play perfectly. You can't, not one single thing can go wrong. And that's something that I just don't sense a cognizance of. In the summer teaching I do and in the winter teaching, students who are at this age who still feel okay after taking an audition when things go wrong. I have one student right now who's, oh, he was pretty good. You know, he was good. You know, well, that means something wasn't great, and that's hopeless for that person. So somehow you have to get to that stage, and mock auditions is one way of finding out what works. And then you know what it is. So, and also to encourage you that audition taking is kind of hard on a person, because if you don't get advanced, and all of us have been through auditions in which we did not advance, you have to be able to be willing to come back and try again. The first oboist of the Boston Symphony right now, a wonderful, wonderful player, once wrote a letter to the New York Times saying that he had taken, it was 30 or 40 auditions before he was even offered any job, any job. He had an audition for second oboe in some obscure orchestras, and he didn't even get that. And for him now to be principal in the Boston Symphony means he's one of the handful of best players in the country. So you just have to have that assurance and the belief in yourself to keep going. And because nobody knows, and nobody on the committee knows who you are. You don't have to worry about failing because we never ever know who people are. We know you only as a number. And even when we discuss who's going to get the job between 2 or 3 people, we're still only told numbers. We have no idea of the person's name. We don't know if they have any experience or if they're a freshman in college. If they've already played in a fine orchestra, we don't know nothing. And so it's that fair. So you don't ever have to worry about your reputation. Or that anyone will know that you did well or didn't do as well. So the thing to do is take the auditions if you can, because they're worth their weight in gold. Okay, thank you very much.